Hey everyone, and welcome to another short video from our Bible Prophecy Bite series that help our viewers to understand key biblical prophecies that point to the soon return of Jesus Christ. My name is Steve Monette, and I will be with you for the next few minutes. So for today's video, I want to talk about the definition of insanity. Yeah, that's right, insanity. And as most of you know, the definition of insanity is continuing to do the same thing over and over again, each time expecting a different result. And I'm sure that we've all had an encounter with insanity at some point in our lives, but we usually learn from these experiences. And of course, there are those that never seem to learn. In perfect case in point is that President Trump and his son-in-law are writing a supposed deal of the century peace plan that is to be the deal of all deals, and is hailed to bring everlasting peace to the Middle Eastern countries and Israel. But of course, there's a catch. It would seem that President Trump has not looked back in history to see what happens to the United States when we do propose peace and safety. And as history has proven over the last 20 years, whenever the United States government proposes that Israel hand over their God-given promised land in exchange for peace and security, a major natural disaster strikes the United States. And we have seen this pattern a total of 10 times. So the likelihood of this being a coincidence is very slim. And in all reality, it's likely to be a pattern from God himself. But should we be surprised by this pattern of destruction? Well, of course not. The Bible clearly tells us that the land possessed by Israel is the promised land. And if anyone tries to divide it, they will have to deal with God directly. Sadly, it would appear that our government leaders don't read the Bible often enough. So, first point. On October 30th, 1991, at the Madrid Peace Conference that was held in, Madrid, Spain, then President Bush proposed that Israel stop building homes in the so-called disputed territories. Within 12 hours of the Madrid meeting, the perfect storm hit the coast of New England with 75-mile-per-hour winds and 30-foot waves, and nearly destroyed the president's private residence in Kennebunkport, Maine. I personally remember this storm very well, as I was on duty and working that night as a firefighter paramedic on Cape Cod, and we got hammered by that storm that night. So it was nothing to sneeze at. A little less than a year later, on August 23rd, 1992, at the second meeting of the Madrid Peace Conference, President Bush again proposed more land for peace. And the very next day, on August 24th, 1992, Hurricane Andrew hit Florida with 156-mile-per-hour winds and billions of dollars in damage, and took many years to rebuild. 2 years later, on January 16th, 1994, President Clinton meets with Syrian President Assad to discuss the plan where Israel would give up its rightful ownership of the Golan Heights in exchange for peace and normal diplomatic relations with Syria. 24 hours later, on January 17th, 1994, California was hit with an 8.0 earthquake, better known as the Northridge earthquake. And as if they hadn't learned their lesson yet, on September 28th, 1998, the Clinton administration proposed again that Israel give up 13% of its land in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank to the Palestinians. And that same day, Hurricane George hits Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, causing $2.5 billion in damage. Apparently unconvinced by this pattern, which looks like the wrath of God, President Bush #2 then convinced Israel in August of 2005 to completely give up or disengage from the Gaza Strip and to forcefully remove all of Israel's occupants and citizens that were in that region, thereby giving up all of Gaza to the Palestinians. On August 15th, 2005, the very same day that the last of the Jewish settlers were removed by force, Hurricane Katrina formed in the Atlantic, and 6 days later hit the state of Louisiana, causing $125 billion in damage and over 1,800 reported deaths. 6 months later, Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon suffered a life-altering stroke in 2006 that kept him in a vegetative state for the next 8 years until his death. Then, in the next stroke of genius by the U.S. government, on May 19, 2011, President Obama proposes that Israel give up all of the land gained over the last 50 years and revert back to its 1967 borders. 3 days later, while the Israelis were still laughing at this notion, an E5 tornado ripped through Joplin, Missouri, killing 158 people and causing $2.8 billion in damage. Then, last week, on October 5th, 2018, Jason Greenblatt, Special Envoy for the United States, met with several senators to brief them on President Trump's Deal of the Century peace plan that supposedly will bring peace and safety to the Israeli and Palestinian region. 2 days later, Hurricane Michael exploded in strength and charged up towards the Florida coast and hit the Panhandle on October 11th, 2018, as a Category 5 hurricane, with estimates to be over $10 billion in damages, 29 dead, and hundreds still unaccounted for. And interestingly enough, that very same day, the hurricane made landfall was the Feast of Trumpets, and also the same day that Jupiter exited the constellation Libra, thereby completing the Revelation 12 sign in the heavens that we have been watching for the past year. I have happened to think that this may have been God's final warning to the United States, and you can see my last video for more details on this event. Yet, in spite of this pattern where calling for peace and safety leads to sudden destruction, our government keeps asking for more punishment by proposing that Israel give up land to the Palestinians in exchange for peace. Now do you understand what the writer of 1 Thessalonians 5:3 meant when they shall say peace and safety, sudden destruction shall come upon them? So, here's where the story gets scary. As of May 14th, 2018, Israel celebrated 70 years as an independent and restored nation. And if you know your Bible, the number 70 is a number of completion in the eyes of God. Furthermore, Israel is now ranked the 8th most powerful nation on earth, and quite possibly has completed the restoration process that God promised in Ezekiel 37. And the peace plan that Trump is getting ready to release any day now has been predicted to be painful for both sides. If Trump tries to divide the promised land of Israel after it has been completely restored by the Lord, Trump will undoubtedly invoke the wrath of God. And further, many other countries are working on this plan with the U.S., and it is shaping up to be that the entire world will try to divide Israel. And God will never allow the world to act in concert to divide the promised land, especially after he just restored it to perfection. But based on recent news reports, the Trump peace plan will likely still be released just after the midterm elections in November 2018. And as we have seen, whenever a U.S. president even so much as speaks of trying to divide the land of Israel, sudden destruction hits the U.S. in the form of a natural disaster. And I wonder if the Trump peace plan will cause God to invoke his wrath again upon this country. And I also believe it is quite possible that God will release his wrath on other participating countries as well, but that is not definite or assured. So how bad will it be this time? I have no idea, but I am fairly convinced it will be quite catastrophic and possibly directed towards New York City, which is the hometown of the president and his son-in-law, who is the mastermind behind this peace plan. Remember that the homes of both of the Bush presidencies were damaged by natural disasters after they respectively proposed land swaps for peace and security in Israel. So, what happens next? Well, only God knows that. But when the peace plan is released in the coming weeks, make sure that you're ready for something really big. So, it's probably a good place for me to stop for today. If you believe that Jesus will return soon, and the evidence seems to prove it, then I would encourage you to spread the message of salvation to anyone you know that isn't saved. The time may very well be short. So until next time, may the Lord keep you and bless you until that great day. Thanks for watching.